מזמור לדוד, אדוני אלוהי לא יחסר, בנוטש יביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי. תשענת בשם בראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Cantor Schiffman began our service chanting Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, I ask you to join with me Psalm 23 in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Our Bible teaches, L'kol zaman v'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. A time for planting and a time for reaping. A time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking, a time for silence, a time for seeking, and a time for losing. It's hard to say goodbye today to such a kind, loving, loyal, gentle man. Bob always had a smile on his face. We know that he had it rough these last couple of months and year, but he was getting better. He rebounded. And with the onset of spring and the coming of Passover, we're so much hoping. There was so much more to live for, so much more to be together. And we're here. Makes it all the more so difficult. But as we're here, we have to take moments to reflect on just who Bob was. The light that he gave to each one of us, and the joy and the love and the kindness that will live on. And that's why we're gathered here today, to strengthen each one of you, all the ones that he loved so much, and all of us too who were touched by Bob. So today we gather to share words of praise, words of honor, words of gratitude and thanks, to be strengthened and be supported by recalling our dear beloved Bob Davis, a beloved son, a beloved brother, a beloved husband, a beloved father, a beloved grandfather, a beloved uncle and friend. We offer our deepest condolences to all of Robert Bob's family. Of course, first to Ellie, to you. The love of his life, you were each other's best friend and confidant. Just a few months shy of marking formally 50 years of married life. We offer our deepest condolences to the apples of his eye, his girls, Bob's daughters, Joanne and Michelle, and son-in-law Effie, and to the diamonds in his crown, the ones who made him Grandpa, to the grandchildren, to Shai, to Izzy, and to Sophie, to his sister Doreen, to brother Eddie, and sister-in-law Hannah, and to their children, his nieces and nephews who Bob considered as his own, to Eric and Teresa, to Robin and Bob, to Renee and Rich, to Stephen and Michelle, to Stephen and Alshabeta, to Jacqueline, to Rob and Kim, to Michael and Lauren, and to all their children, the greats, nieces and great-nephews who were also like his own. Today, Bob returns to his parents of blessed memory who he adored. He loved his parents, carrying on their legacy, sharing their story. He rejoins his parents of blessed memory, Frida and Jackie, in heaven, and all those who have gone before. We have some very special family tributes today. I'd first like to call up daughter Joanne, joined by granddaughter Sophie. And they're also joined by nephew Eric. Sophie, when you speak, there's a stool there, a step there for you.
Oh. Rabbi Al, can I use this? Thank you. Sophie, sit down. You'll sit. Thank you all for coming this afternoon to remember Dad. To our friends and family streaming the funeral, thank you for joining from far away. I'm just warning you now that there will be times this may feel like a Bobby Davis story or explanation. At least I hope it will. So this may be a little rambling, but as Dad, I will make my point eventually. I'm not the greatest public speaker, so bear with me. Though I've spoken publicly in recent years, it totally freaks me out. And I did not get to write this in the way that I had planned and wanted to. Everyone who's close to Daddy, and probably even those who weren't that close to him, knew how much he loved turtles. Starting with his turtle Gregory that he had as a kid. Dad hated getting gifts. He didn't feel that he deserved them. But we knew if we got something with a turtle on it, he'd be happy. He had a signature turtle made into a stamp for envelopes. We are all turtled up today. It was in his email signature, and he also had a framed picture in his office of a turtle with one of his favorite quotes. Behold the turtle who makes progress only when he sticks his neck out. So, Dad, I'm doing my best to be a turtle right now, sticking my neck out and hopefully making progress. My dad was born October 6, 1946, to Jackie and Frida Davis. It's family lore that Grandma had Chinese food before having Dad, apparently to help induce labor. And I realized Sunday that Chinese food had helped usher him into the world and is what he shared with me and Mom Saturday night. When I think of my dad growing up, the phrase little Bobby Davis comes to mind. Dad lived off of Kinsman in Cleveland until he was about 4. And then my grandparents built a house on Hildana Road in Shaker Heights. His neighbor and friend Renee Edelman, who we lost a couple of years ago, used to always refer to Dad as little Bobby Davis. Maybe because they were about the same height, I don't know. When Daddy was a baby and they were still living off of Kinsman, my grandparents had a little enclosure in the backyard. I think it was meant for the dog, but somehow my dad wound up inside. And since then, my aunt and uncle have referred to Dad's cage in the backyard. Daddy was a member of the elite Double Davis Club, whose membership is very limited. You see, my grandma was a Davis before she married my grandpa, and no, they were not related. Over the years, I would ask him which Davis side he was referring to in a particular conversation. Most of the time, he could easily answer, but sometimes it took him a minute, and my mom would jump in with the correct answer. We also have some people who are related on both Davis sides, which always made things a little bit more confusing. But I think it also increased the love. He was surrounded by so much love on Hildana. At least a couple of my grandma's siblings and their families lived within a few houses, and I'm pretty sure Uncle Eddie and Aunt Doreen correct me later, that Grandma Esther and Grandpa Brown were there too. When Dad introduced us to someone new, the first question was, "Is so-and-so from Hildana?" If the answer was no, the next question was, "Ludgate? Shelton?" And when he answered, especially when we were on the right track, there was always a sparkle in his eye. His friendships from on and around Hildana were lifelong. When he got to Shaker Heights High School, that friend group increased, and if it weren't for the pandemic, Dad would have still been going to the monthly Corky's lunches with his Shaker friends. One of Daddy's greatest experiences was being a Boy Scout. I don't know if it was the time outdoors that spoke to him more, or the extra time he got to spend with my grandpa, who he adored. He loved sharing his experiences at the 50th National Boy Scout Jamboree in Colorado. The clear skies reached into his soul. He would talk about his experiences 40 or 50 years later, and that Bobby Davis sparkle with the big smile was there, as if he was transported back to Colorado in 1960. To my knowledge, Dad hadn't been back to Colorado since and always wanted to go back. As most of you know, and you saw with the beautiful honor he was given, Dad served in Vietnam. You can also tell by what I'm wearing. I've been wearing this shirt of his probably since I was in middle school. I'm so proud of what he did when it wasn't something that he really wanted to do. Daddy took all of his responsibilities seriously, regardless of what they were. Though he won a sharpshooter badge and technically was a member of the NRA, I know it's hard to believe, he was really a pacifist. The current war in Ukraine just absolutely broke his heart and made him sick to see so much unnecessary bloodshed and destruction. After graduating from Shaker, Dad enrolled at the Ohio State University. He got mono spring quarter and was not able to re-register for classes, which led to his draft number coming up. Meanwhile, in true Bobby Davis fashion, he scratched hash marks on the walls for every day that he was stuck in the hospital. My grandparents obviously didn't want their baby to go to Vietnam. He was barely 20, but they knew he had a responsibility to his country. I believe there was an airline strike. Again, Uncle Eddie and Doreen, correct me later. And they couldn't get him on a flight to California to ship out. So Grandpa called someone he knew at the Cleveland Indians and got my dad on their charter flight to California with the team. This is an example of what I know is people doing anything for Grandpa. Everyone was his friend, and Dad was the same way. Daddy got to California, but he's not entirely sure of how he made it to Vietnam. My friend Michael reminded me the other day about how Daddy told us he'd had a few Singapore slings in San Francisco before shipping out. I wish I could tell this half as well as Dad, but needless to say, he was passed out most of the flight to Vietnam, and my guess is he was a little bit hungover when he landed. He went and served with honor, though sometimes with a big Davis mouth. He was invited to officer candidate school and decided against it. I think his love for photography really blossomed when he was in Vietnam. He has some really beautiful photos that he took of the marketplace near his base in Cameron Bay. The photos line the walls of his office at home. Dad experienced anti-Semitism while he was there, and in sharing the experiences, tried to bring some levity. He did everything he could to protect Michelle and I, and of course Mom, from the hate in this world. Many of you know how meticulous and disciplined he was. Well, maybe not about potato chips, but he was disciplined about finishing every bowl. Something I think he really took away from the Army, the discipline of the potato chips. But, could have been, who knows. When Michelle and I were learning to make our beds, we had to make hospital corners, and he always asked us if he was going to be able to bounce a quarter off of them. He would have liked both of us to do ROTC. Mom was not having it. Michelle kind of did. And those of you who know me know that I would not have lasted. One thing that was always important to Daddy was making sure that other Vietnam vets were always welcomed home. He never really talked about how he was treated when he got home, if people gave him a hard time, but he knew what his brothers in arms went through. And Michelle and I learned pretty early on from him that when you saw a Vietnam vet, you made sure that they knew that they were welcome home, no matter how many years had passed. When I picked up Daddy from the hospital a little over a week ago, we had to get a couple prescriptions at the Cleveland Clinic main campus pharmacy. When we were parking the car, he noticed someone had a Vietnam veteran sticker on their car. He had me circle back until we found the car again. He was still pretty weak from being in the hospital for 6 weeks, so he hated his handwriting, but we left a note on that person's windshield. It said, "Welcome home, Bob, 6667, Dee Dee." Now, those in the family think that Dee Dee's Aunt Doreen, but Dee Dee is slang in Vietnamese for leave quickly or hurry away. Mom and Dad met at a B'nai B'rith singles event. Aunt Natalie, who's been one of my mom's friends since they were in first grade, had asked her if she wanted to go. She said, "Yeah, I'll go." I think that one of Dad's friends invited him to, said we should go to this too. I don't fully remember the story, unfortunately. But the way that Mom tells it, when they were there, he basically slid over in her direction, but he was asking somebody for a cigarette. He was still smoking and didn't quit for another 15 years. The visual in my head, though, is really Dad sliding into base because baseball was life. Then he started talking to Mom and asked for her phone number. She told me this the other night. I didn't know this part of the story. She said, "Well, aren't you going to write it down?" Dad's response, "No, I'm going to remember it." Mom didn't know yet, but Dad had this amazing knack for remembering numbers and doing math in his head. It's always confounded me. After they'd been dating for a while, they went over to Grandma's house, and my great-grandfather, Grandpa Brown, was there too. They all went on a walk, Dad and Grandpa Brown walking together, Mom and Grandma. And Grandpa Brown said to him, Eric, you could probably do a Grandpa Brown impression, I don't know. He said, "You be careful. This one's going to marry you." And I think that the way Dad told it is Grandpa Brown also warned him that there would be a station wagon in his future. And lo and behold, there was a station wagon in his future, although they didn't have it for long. I wish I could tell the story better. Daddy always knew how to tell stories. I wanted him to record some of his stories for StoryCorps at the Library of Congress. I'm so sad that we never had the chance to do that. He would have loved it, and he would have told it with just the right cadence. So our job now is to keep those stories alive as best we can. our parents together. Mom and Dad were such a team. And I think balanced each other out. Everyone here knows Dad loved talking in person, on the phone, on Skype, on Zoom, any way you could talk. He loved being around people. Mom is not nearly as outgoing as Daddy is. But he made her feel comfortable, and I think gave her some of the confidence that she didn't know that she had. She always knew she had somebody there who had her back, who loved her to the end of the earth, and would always protect her. In turn, the two of them protected us however they could. When I was in 3rd grade, I got really sick and was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Dad, I guess I gave that to you since you got diagnosed after me. The rest of the crap you gave to me. But the two of them did everything in their power to get me better. Everything. They took me to get an immunity booster so I wouldn't get chicken pox when it was going around. Still got chicken pox. Dad got it too. So we had it together, and there are pictures of the two of us in our pajamas with delirious grins on our faces covered in calamine lotion. When I had other health issues in college, and a few years later, they dropped everything. I mean, everything. And got to DC as quickly as they could to be with me and support me. Dad advocated for me like nobody's business. If it meant he had to yell at doctors to get the right answer, to not scare me with incorrect information, he did it. I learned how to be an advocate from him. He not only advocated for me, but for Michelle on the sidelines of her basketball games, sometimes a little too loudly, for my mom, for his nieces and nephews, and he advocated for Grandma all the time, especially in her later years. We were all looking forward to Passover. We thought that it would be kind of our gateway into getting back into some semblance of normality with him. He loved telling us about how Grandpa Brown would lead seders past midnight. We did not go past midnight at our house, which was okay. One of my cousins, Stevens, I don't think Stephen Smith was ever, but Stephen Davis, there's two Stevens, sorry. One of my cousin Stephen's favorite parts of the Seder was when Dad would open up the horseradish and take a whiff. It was an experience. Daddy would open up the jar. It was like he was tasting wine. Make sure everything wafted up. He would say good, and not the nicest word to be using right now. And he would just have this look of pure joy on his face because it was part performance and part he loved horseradish. But, you know, we'd see his face turn red and the sweat would just pour out of his forehead. He's like, oh, that's good. He also had what we called Passover magic. And when Michelle and Jacqueline and Stephen and I would find the afikomen, Robin and Eric were in California, and Michael wasn't born yet. We would bring the afikomen to Dad. We would show him what we found, and like magic, silver dollars would appear from behind his ears. he loved it. He probably got more joy in Passover magic than we did. One year, Grandma had a cold, and so she couldn't make the matzo balls that year. So she enlisted Dad. He spent the afternoon making matzo balls at her house. And I think he was getting ready to pitch because they were so tightly formed that you could see his fingerprints in them when they were in your bowl. That was the last time he made matzo balls. Daddy loved Israel. When he was in Vietnam, he contacted the Israel Aliyah Center to try to find out if he could make Aliyah straight from Vietnam. He loved that place so much. It was the perfect combination for him of nature, which he adored. Oh, he loved to be outside so much. And Judaism, and it spoke to him. He didn't make it there for the first time until 2001. Michelle was already living there. And when we landed, I remember turning around and seeing tears in his eyes. He was so happy to be there. And if he could have gotten in one more hike in En-Gedi, he would have. We have cousins on my mom's side who live in Haifa. And for those of you who don't know Israel, the Baha'i temple, which is absolutely exquisite, and Dad loved that so much, is in Haifa. And the founder of the Baha'i tradition is called the Bab, but B-A''AB. My cousin Omri, when he was little and first met Dad, he used to call Dad, he called him the Bab. But he was the Bab. He was one of a kind. He hated being so far away when Michelle had the girls. He was so proud that two of his grandchildren are Sabras. He was so proud of all three girls, Shai, Izzy, and Sophie, and loved them all so much. And I think had a special relationship with each one of them, depending on their interests. I know that Sophie had an amazing bond with my dad. They loved each other so much. And I was expecting Daddy to teach her how to drive. Because I was like, nobody wants the girl who still drives like she's in DC to teach somebody how to drive. It needs to be Dad. So Eric, no, Eric's not going to do it either because he'll just wreck the car. Daddy and I didn't always get along the greatest when I was growing up. Until probably my early 20s. I think it's because we were so much alike and we butted heads. And we both have very, very high standards for ourselves. And I think we didn't know how to communicate to each other for a while. Daddy always felt that he needed to live up to Grandpa Jackie and didn't feel that he ever could. And in turn, I have those same standards for myself to live up to Dad and who he is. All I know is I'm going to make sure I work hard every minute of every day to be a better person. It's how I've always operated. And I will do everything to continue to make you proud. I'm almost done, don't worry. Dad was very humble and unassuming. I'm sure he's annoyed with me right now because he probably did not want a service here in the chapel and probably just wanted graveside. You all know why. Or there are a couple reasons why. Sorry, Dad. Michelle and I made the executive decision. We knew how many people love you and would want to remember you, and so we're doing it here. You deserve every praise, every honor, everything, because you're amazing. A parting thought. Many of you here know of Dad's love for M&Ms. He had me pick up his over-the-counter medication last week and bring it to Montefiore. Of course, I dutifully took care of his request and shared some of his meds with him. I may have taken more meds than he did that day. He didn't just eat them, he organized them. Daddy loves spilling out a bag and then organizing them by color. So, if you come to Michelle's house, please take a bag of M&Ms with you. Then, in honor of Dad, you have math homework. Michelle will be in charge of checking it because she's better at math than I am. Well, I can probably do easy fractions. Please organize your bag of M&Ms and create a bar graph showing the color distribution. Thank you. Ready, Soph? You can do this, baby. I'm gonna hold your hand. Okay? Take off your mask. Okay? Here, take off your masks.
My grandpa was the best grandpa in the whole wide world. He loved to help. He always tried his best for anything that he did. He liked to make sure that people were happy. He loved doing math. He loved doing lots of things. He was really, 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 really nice. Some of the things that we did together are taking naps on the couch together, doing math together, looking at pictures together, and other things. Some of the things that he loved are turtles, R2-D2, lobsters, his family, his friends, taking pictures, especially of barns painted with mail pouch tobacco. He also loved to watch and play sports. He liked to play softball, baseball, football, and golf. He liked to watch baseball, basketball, football, and golf. I love him very much, and I always will love him and remember him.
I'm extremely thankful to be home today. My Uncle Bob and I had a very special relationship that'll stay with me my entire life. I saw as a very young boy him coming back from Vietnam and giving to our country and becoming my big brother to me at a very young age. Through the years, in 1972. No, I can read my stuff.
No. I'm pulling it down.
See what's going on here? So, anyway, coming a big brother to me through the years, and then seeing him marry the love of his life in 1972 and working in the family business and trying to keep me out of trouble, which was a full-time job. We shared a lot of things, home, Cleveland, our town, the love for community, and how special relationships are. And don't laugh, but always spell checking all of us kids all the time. And yes, I did spell check this letter. We shared Cleveland sports every year. The Browns backers also. The dogs had a special shout out for everyone here. Uncle Bob, they shared all their love with all the family during this time, and they all told me to tell you, woof, woof. Every season, we would laugh, and we all say, we get him next year. Beanie wishes she can be here too with us, and she sends her love. But again, I will miss you, Uncle Bob, my big brother, who taught me how to handle many difficult times in my life without judgment. I know looking back on his life, from my perspective, Grandma and Grandpa are so proud. And Ellie, Joanne, Michelle, his granddaughters. He is a very special man, and he always will hold a very special place in our hearts. To Dad, Mom, Aunt Doreen, and family, I hope and pray that the memories all of you have will always fill your hearts with the joy and bring smiles to your faces. I know I have been so fortunate to have his guidance in my life and to be able to share that joy together. I love you, Uncle Bob, a.k.a. my big brother forever. I will always travel with you, and may you always travel in your hearts and in your minds and your souls and have him with you forever. Thank you.
Thank you for those incredible tributes. Put it simply, Bob was a mensch. He had a good neshama. He had a good soul. Kind and thoughtful, a trusted advisor and confidant, a sounding board, a man who would help with anything. He was always there when you needed him. He loved to help. He couldn't do enough for you. He always had something kind to say, and for him, friendship meant everything. People just gravitated to Bob. He was a talker, a master of words. He loved his favorite quotes, even though it was hard to get him to stop talking, though. He was also somehow a great listener. He was the ultimate salesman. He wouldn't give up or leave or hang up the phone until he made that sale. He had a big personality, and for Bob, family was always number one. He always wanted you to succeed and to revel in your accomplishments. Very smart and very tough, strong till the end. He was the best. He told me he could have been successful in any field that he went into. He could have been a radio host, a comedian, a professor, a journalist, a therapist, a storyteller, an editor, a life coach, maybe even a rabbi. I don't know. In the end, Bob was our teacher. He taught us how to give back to country, to community, to family, to each other, and how to always be there. Eddie, you shared these words with me about your brother, that he was the most amazing person, that when you were little you'd play ball together, and later partners in business along with your sister Doreen. You told me that Bob had so much pride in his work, how you took a family business and built it up with hard work and development. And Doreen, you shared that as a single mother raising your children, Bob practically helped save your lives, always there, always so close. And you love how Bob emulated the values that your parents taught, kindness above all, forgiveness, and family first. He was the best father. You already heard from Joanne, and Michelle, I know, says the same thing. He lived for his girls. You were his everything, cheering you on all the time, helping you with everything that you could be. He helped you become the adults and the mothers you are today. You shared with me that you both have always tried to emulate your father. You wanted to be him, and you are. Effie, you shared with me that meeting Bob sealed the deal with Michelle. You actually said that you were on the fence before you met Bob, or before you met the parents. But on that meeting Bob, And of course, Ellie, you knew that Michelle was the one for you. You loved how Bob welcomed you with acceptance and love from that first time you met, and that you shared with me that Bob was a great role model for you as well in how to be a husband, how to raise girls in your house, and you just loved talking together, and that you were his guy. The best grandfather, Sophie, I think you summed it up for Izzy and Shai as well. He was truly the best. As you heard from Eric, nieces and nephews were extremely close. He was like another parent to you, how he teach you all about life, how to live independently. He taught many of you to create a budget, how to overcome adversity, how to exceed. Your Uncle Bobby made sure that you each knew exactly where you came from. And if you had any trouble, even car trouble or house trouble, Uncle Bobby would always be to the rescue. He had a great voice. He took voice lessons. In fact, he was working to do voiceovers. He had the gramophone voice, which of course helped him with sales. He would make voicemail messages for you, when you did that. And he just knew how to talk to people. He was witty and always had a little joke ready for you. He loved his cars, his convertible. He loved his sports, as you heard, and his sports teams. He was at the Browns championship in 1964. Of course, his father, Jackie, was the boxer and the referee. And the story goes that he considered boxing, Bob, and then he sparred once with his father, and once was enough. He knew how to do it. In fact, Joanne and Michelle, when you were growing up, one time you watched Rocky III together with Dad, and at the end of the movie, Dad had you guys stand up, and he taught you some of the moves, how to hold your hands, and how to practice, and you still remember that and carry that on. The king of the barbecue, no matter the Cleveland weather, he'd be in his shorts grilling. He was truly the best. The girls shared with me they loved their time working at both Jackie Davis Foods and then the seafood place that the siblings had together, how you guys were part of the business, counting the inventory, folding the flyers, flyering the neighborhood, everything. You loved how Dad got you so involved in all the business. And Izzy, you shared with me, just like your Aunt Joanne shared, that Passover magic was the best. I know that as we'll be sitting down to Seder in just a few days, there's still going to be Passover magic. Maybe not the same, but Bob is going to be there. Grandpa's going to be there. May you feel the magic even with that empty seat. His memory's always going to be for a blessing. It's hard to say goodbye to such a good man, a man filled with life, filled with kindness, a man who lived for you and loved you so much. But we know that his name will always bring blessings, and we say, Amen. At this point, I'm going to call Cantor Schiffman to recite the memorial prayer.
Please rise. Eloha selichot, chanun v'rachum, erech apayim v'rav chesed, hametzei chapar hapesha, v'kravad yesham, u'menucha nechona, תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים משה זלג בן חנוך ופרידקה שהלך לעולמו ענה בעל הרחמים, זכרה לו לטובה כל זכויותיו וצדקותיו, בארצו לחיים, ופתח לו שערי צדק ויורה. שערי חמלה וחנינה, בשאת כנפיך הסתירהו לעולמים, וצרור וצרור החיים ונשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום המשכבה, ונאמר אמן.
O God of forgiveness, you who are gracious and compassionate, patient and abundantly kind, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of our beloved Moshe Zeleg, Robert Bob Davis, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that a loved one find perfect peace in your embrace. May he merit the reward for living life the right way with kindness, righteousness, and love. May he be at rest, and we say, Amen. We can be seated. Just a few notes. Following the service, interment will take place at B'nai Assurance Chesterland Memorial Park. The family will be receiving friends for Shiva at the home of Michelle and Effie Golan, 23517 Springside Lane in Solon. They'll be sitting today following the burial until 8 p.m., Wednesday and Thursday from 2 to 4 and 6 to 8, Friday before Seder from 10 to 2. Anyone visiting is asked to wear a mask when they are visiting. The family may be adding a few virtual Shiva hours as well. Stay tuned for that information. Those who would like to contribute in Bob's memory can give to the Jewish War Veterans, of which he was an active member, the Vietnam Veterans of America, JNF, the Jewish National Fund, or the American Heart Association. Sorry, the correct address for Michelle and Effie for the Shiva home is 32517 Springside Lane in Solon, 32517.
Yasem